everybody. Welcome to the Abroaders Travel Podcast, your weekly meetup with thousands of entrepreneurs, hustlers, creators, nomads, ninjas, wanderers, and world changers, all seeking to build the skills and connections to live a life without borders. If you want to learn more about what we do or download our entire podcast archive, check out the website, abroaders.com.
Happy Wednesday morning and welcome to another episode of the Abroaders Podcast. I'm Erik here with AJ in Grand Ledge, Michigan. Today is Wednesday, December 28th, and this is episode 155.
So that means show notes are at abroaders.com/155.
Quite an innovation. We do have a few news and updates, even though we recorded this a little bit in advance since some of the folks on our team are taking some much-deserved holiday vacation time. So you can think of these news and updates as sort of like the old-timey days when you had to wait for the newspaper to arrive on horse and buggy.
Physically travel.
So not in the electronic age. But we do have a couple of news items to share with you today. And also, we are going to be giving a full report on the Home for the Holidays campaign. It was a tremendous success, and we have lots of people to thank and some really inspiring and heartwarming stories to share about people that all you guys that donated points had the opportunity to help and make a huge impact. So we'll get to that in a couple of minutes. But first, let's dive into some news and updates. We're going to start with United and some basic economy fares that have been announced for 2017.
Yeah, so what it looks like we've got here is United is taking kind of they're in a perverted way. They're copying Delta's approach. So Delta's got a basic fare class now where there's no upgrades, no seat selection, no changes, and United seems to be doing something pretty similar. So with this new United basic fare, there's going to be no elite credit for flying. Only get a personal item. So that means you can't use the overhead bin, essentially. You can't bring on the traditional carry-on luggage. You can bring a purse or a bag. And you were saying there's going to be like a penalty almost, a fee.
Yeah. Well, so the risk here is that if you say that, the gate agents are pretty much just responsible for getting the flight out on time. And so if you got a bunch of people boarding the flight that have these basic economy fares, you've got this issue of like, what do you do if they bring the wrong bag? Because, who else is going to be checking that?
Right.
So I think the idea is that they want to discourage that a lot. And so they're going to charge a $25 convenience fee if you have to gate check your bag because it's not one of the eligible bags. So if it's an overhead roller style bag, that's not going to be allowed. You're just allowed to bring like your small personal item. And by the way, the elite credit thing is kind of a big deal too. Nobody else is doing this. In general, they're trying to compete with like Spirit Airlines and the low cost carriers that nickel and dime you for everything, which as far as I'm concerned, more power to you if you want to sell those fares. But hopefully this is going to be disclosed clearly because the last thing you want is to think that you just found a cheap flight on United.com only to find out that it's got these draconian rules.
The thing that concerns me about this is finding the fare class on a flight is kind of a complicated thing. There are blog posts and tutorials that I've seen showing you how to figure out your fare class because fare class can change the game as far as miles that you earn on paid flights. They've got the breakdown. This fare class gets 50%. This one gets 100%. And if they're not transparent on that, that's going to be a nightmare for them to deal with. Just on if people are confused and don't know which fare class they bought.
Yeah. Hopefully, I think you're assuming that most people are going to buy these fares on United.com. The part where it gets really tricky is if you buy through an aggregator like Expedia or Orbitz, you might not have a clue that the fare that you're being presented is one of these base fares that has these special rules. So be interesting. Definitely be on the lookout. They're going to start selling these for flights starting in 2017. So if you're buying from United, be careful with that. And I think the other thing that'll be interesting to see is United's not giving, like I said, any elite credit, any elite qualifying dollars, but it remains to be seen how their partners treat these. So if you want to credit a basic economy fare to Lufthansa, are you going to earn any miles and more? There might be some loopholes there. We'll definitely get back to this and explore once these go live.
I'm most excited, or I'm not excited. I'm most curious. I'm most curious about is to see if they actually make their flights cheaper or if they just give you less.
Yeah,
because I've heard some critics saying that their economy fares are going to be the same, but you just get less and you need to pay more to get for what they used to give you for an economy fare. Or if we really do see those flights at $35, $45, then, fair is fair. But I think this could come back to bite them in the ass if they're just kind of ratcheting up the price of things.
I definitely agree. It'll be interesting to see where that goes. So next up, I wanted to talk with you a little bit. So you just came back to the U.S. and unfortunately, you haven't gotten global entry mostly because you haven't been able to get an appointment scheduled.
Yeah.
And so you had, by the way, just for painting a little bit of contrast, I got in from Brazil to Houston, went to the global entry kiosk, checked in, printed a little receipt, and just headed right out. The guy didn't ask me a single question, just looked at it, said, welcome home. That was it. So my experience has been very much like that with global entry. And global entry is getting more and more accessible thanks to having a bunch of premium credit cards like the Chase Sapphire Reserve,
right,
the Citi Prestige, and the Amex Platinum that offer $100 credit for the application fee. Mm-hmm. So let's start with your immigration practice on the way in.
Yeah, it took well over an hour for me to get through. There's a little bit of a line, but the bulk of the time was just they grilled me. I'd been in Colombia for a while. The initial screener, so there's three people I dealt with. The initial screener who was just very curious as to why I was in Colombia, what I was doing, what my profession was, the kind of normal things, but grilling me as far as, why do you have a computer monitor? What's in your bag? Do you have anything? Oh, yeah, I've got some chocolate. Why do you have chocolate? Just really giving me a hard time. Then once I got done with the first lady, thinking, okay, we're done with that. That was kind of painful, but we're moving on. And then I go over for the final exit point where I can go catch my connecting flight. And this guy, it was so bizarre because this guy goes, they might want to take a look at your monitor. And then he just handed me this big blue card and he goes, you need to go talk to these people. I'm like, wait, so do they want to look at it or not? Can I go? And he go, take this blue card to these people over here. And there's this color coded thing for secondary screening. So I go over to these border control people in a more official office where they've got, some serious personnel where it looks like they would screen people for drugs and interrogate people. So I'm in there, and then this guy is like, it's like good cop, bad cop to me. One guy's really friendly, one guy's not. Let me see your passport. Go sit down over there. And I just waited for, I don't know, maybe 15 or 20 minutes, and then he tells me, bring your bags over here. He opens up all my bags, goes through everything, and the most disappointing part was, and not to mention, I just got grilled. He said, what were you doing in Colombia? What does your company do again? Why is it there? What were you doing again? So who do you know there? Where did you stay? I found a place on Airbnb. What's that? It's like just ridiculous. And so then the guy gets into one of my carry-on bags. He goes, what's this? I go, it's some chocolate from my friend's chocolate shop in Medellin. I'm bringing it home for Christmas. He goes, okay. Takes a knife out and just cuts the damn thing open, pulls out a chocolate bar, cuts that open, takes a look in there. Okay, goes through all my other shit.
Cocaine and
yeah. Man. So it was really odd. I mean, I understand that security is important, but there was no reason other than the fact that I had been in Colombia. Right. So is that everybody that goes to Colombia gets questioned?
I think so. I think that's basically. By the way, where did you connect?
I connected in Atlanta.
Okay. So my experience in Miami has been horrendous. That's like the last airport I want to go through coming in from South America.
Yeah. The only good experience I had was in Newark. This guy was super friendly. He asked me where I was, and it was when we were at the conference in Bangkok. And this guy was just reliving what must have been like the trip of his life. This guy seemed just kind of, a little bit depressed and not excited about his job. And then when he heard I was in Thailand, he's like, "Oh man, is this still there? Is that restaurant still there? Is that? Man, I'm jealous." But yeah.
Well, so this brought up an interesting point because global entry also comes with pre-check, and I actually learned a new lesson with pre-check. I've been trying to just resolve the mystery of why I often don't get qualified for pre-check. And I found out that I'm actually putting in the wrong number. They have this giant number in 12, like 25 font on your membership card. Yeah. And then they have this other number in 8 font. And it turns out that the first number doesn't mean anything. And the number you have to put it on your reservation. So note to anybody who does have the global entry card, you want to put on your reservation the really small SSID number rather than the big number that's super obvious. And once I got that sorted out, it worked. But I thought I'd bring this up because it looks like the TSA is rolling out some new innovations, some new ways to try and facilitate getting more traffic through security checkpoints. And it looks like sometime next year, they may be essentially allowing people to qualify as pre-check. And what that means is, from a logistics perspective, is you don't have to take your shoes off. You don't have to take your belt off. You don't have to take your laptop out of your backpack. Small little pleasures that we all got to enjoy before 9/11. But so that could be a significant improvement. And the article was just interesting. You know, they talk about how the TSA is looking at creating risk profiles essentially for travelers, and they say that that's not going to be based on your ethnicity, your race, or your religion, and going to be based on where you've traveled, which does make sense in a more real sense of security risk. But you wonder how that's going to be implemented in practice.
Yeah, I would imagine that there's still going to be some race religion components, possibly, or maybe just nationality stuff as well. Yep. The thing that I'm curious about there is, do they consider a connection a place you've been? If for some reason you have a flight connecting somewhere, did they say that's risky enough? Maybe we don't know what this person did at that airport, or who they met with, or if they had a layover.
Yeah, it'll be interesting in terms of routing. I mean, we'll see if this becomes an issue. Hopefully, this will just streamline the security overall. The part that I thought was most interesting, well, there's two components that are not live yet by any means, but are intended to be rolled out soon. One of which is using more canine units in security. Dogs are by far the best way to find explosives, which is obviously much more of a concern for everybody else than drugs. Right? So, like you always maybe think about canine units as drug sniffing dogs, but they think that they can use those units at TSA checkpoints to be able to essentially run through the line, sniff everybody's bag, and if they don't get any hits, they're going to pre-check clear those people so that they can go through without taking their laptop out, without taking off their belt and their shoes. So that could really streamline things at places where airport security lines are long. And then the second one is basically, if you think about when you travel, you always have to have your boarding pass and your ID. Whether it's domestic, you can use a driver's license, or with your passport. And so they're looking at just eliminating the ID part entirely and using fingerprints and retina scan. And the article that I was reading was that this is the top priority for the TSA next year, is to start implementing, or at least pilot testing, some of that technology.
There's going to be some huge pushback on fingerprint stuff, just for the fact of the people that don't want to be in any type of system. It's their right to not be in the system. That'll be interesting. I mean, personally, I would prefer that. That'd be great.
Well, it's a trade-off that you have to make if you do global entry. I mean, they do the fingerprint thing, no retina scan, but I don't know that it really matters at that point if they've got your fingerprints.
One thing I just remembered, when you're talking about risk profile, and I see in the notes, it's about where you've been rather than race, religion, and those other characteristics, is really interesting. I remember reading an article. I don't know if it was the Points guy or one of the big blogs was talking about their experience having been to Turkey, and they got on some type of list. And one of the pieces of feedback I read, they had to reach out to their senator to get them off the crazy list that just anytime they flew anywhere, they would get grilled.
God, what a nightmare.
Yeah.
Don't want to get on that list.
So moving from airport security and travel logistics more into points and miles, you dug up some interesting stats on just the business of loyalty programs and what it means for the banks and the type of investment that they're putting into it, which is really interesting, and it affects all of us as award travel and points enthusiasts. So right here in the notes, you've got to see, since 2010, the 6 largest issuers have given out more than $100 billion worth in rewards.
Yeah.
So that's in the past 6 years, $100 billion. Wow.
With a B. And I think the biggest thing about this article is just that the overall situation has shifted a lot. 10 years ago, Amex was already very much into the points and rewards and had a much more sophisticated currency system with their membership rewards. I think they're sort of the grandfather of the whole thing. And Chase and Citi and some of the other banks saw how much money they were making and how many customers and loyal customers at that they were acquiring. But I think overall this is really good news for points and miles enthusiasts, because it just shows that the companies are just investing hand over foot in creating loyalty programs that give back. And I thought the biggest, one of the most interesting stats from the whole article was that the Chase Sapphire Reserve, which is still offering 100,000 point sign up bonus and a $300 airfare credit or travel credit, that Chase has estimated that investment in acquiring customers is going to set them back around $200 to $300 million this year. So a huge transfer of value to credit card users. But on the other side, their bet is that they're acquiring those users for the long term. And I think, with the quality of that card, if they don't undermine the value of Ultimate Rewards, if they continue to maintain the relationship with United and Singapore and Air France, and they continue to have that really easy to use travel credit that you don't have to call, you don't have to do anything, it just posts, I think they're probably right. I think that's going to end up paying off long term.
Yeah, but I mean, the people at JP Morgan Chase, they're smart. They understand what they're doing. Everything was calculated. I mean, there's no industry, there are, but not many more industries that are more calculated than the banks and finance. And so that just tells you how much they're willing to spend to acquire customers. It tells you how much money they make on credit cards, whether it's from merchants or whether it's from people carrying a balance and the credit card users paying 17 or 20% interest on stuff.
Right.
And
by the way, the balances are up. And so, just in the last 5 years, revolving balances are up like 6%. So just a lesson to all, if you are going to dive into the points and miles thing, one of the most important things that you can do is to pay your balance every month on time.
Unless you're feeling like being a martyr and you want to carry a balance and pay a bunch in interest so all of us can continue to get miles.
Right. Those 6% are definitely underwriting a big part of the boom that's happening in reward travel. But ultimately that's really going to eat away at the value of your points very quickly. And pretty much, you're paying $10 to make $2 kind of scenario.
Reward travel and what we talk about is a really nuanced space with a lot of caveats, but that'd be the one hard line I would recommend people is if you're going to carry a balance, it's not worth it. I don't care what the bonus is, just don't do it for so many reasons.
Yep. And the other thing is the delinquencies, like that's the type of thing that the banks are concerned about because, the people carrying a balance are great for them, but the people that don't actually pay that balance off are things that they have to write off. And that's held pretty steady, still surprisingly low. Late payments are like 2% of all of their accounts. And in the grand scheme of things, the banks are making huge money. I don't know what percent the rewards market or the rewards cards are, but Chase is expected to post like $5 billion in profit. So it means that $200 million that they're investing in the Sapphire Reserve, that's a big number still, but in the grand scheme of things, it's a small piece.
We're talking about Amex and Chase is really interesting because when you compare the two, there's some big differences. And I had a conversation, it would have been a year ago in Barcelona with a guy that used to work for Amex, and he was talking about the Costco deal, and he was talking about how Chase can be more competitive on the rates they provide because they can have credit card stuff be a loss later and they don't need to be profitable. Where Amex is a credit card company and Chase is a financial institution with banking and with loans and with mortgages and all sorts of stuff. So Chase is happy to even lose a little bit of money on credit cards if they think that you can take out a loan in the future or bank with them, park a bunch of money in one of their accounts. So
yeah, that's a really good point. Speaking of Chase, the last news and updates item that we have for you guys this week is about 524. And this was posted on one of the blogs that we follow, talking about a possible new workaround for Chase 524. It's not really a workaround per se, but just indication that Chase may be
an exception they're making,
relaxing these rules for certain people that they really want to acquire as customers. And so if you have a Chase credit card account, what you want to do is look at the Chase website when you're logged in. Now, I know that we don't have this, at least at the time we were taking a look at this content, because we have business cards with Chase as well. And we have an integrated account where we've got both business and personal. So we don't have like the new release version of the Chase website. But if this is happening for people that just have personal accounts, it'll probably follow that this will be offered to other people. And so what Chase is doing is pre-qualifying people. They're saying, regardless of your 524 status, you're pre-qualified for the Sapphire Reserve card. Go ahead and apply. And those people, even if they have 10 applications in the last 24 months, are still getting approved. So if you're curious, you're over 524, check out your Chase account. We're going to link in the show notes to the post that's got a little more detail about where you can find these offers, but possibly some light at the end of the tunnel.
How sophisticated do you think Chase is with the way they target people? Do you think that they would say, okay, this Chase person has not transferred points to airlines, this person has not, I'm just curious if you're somebody that's, racked up a lot of Ultimate Rewards and they see that you've been strategically, filtering them into United or into Singapore and Air France, and you're actively
higher
doing
cost
that stuff,
redemption. It's interesting. I expect they're more sophisticated than the TSA.
Okay, so Home for the Holidays, this initiative, what is it? Long story short, it's an initiative that helps people without the financial means to head home for the holidays to go home for the holidays. So this was started in 2013 by PR professional and entrepreneur Peter Shankman. So Peter travels a lot, and to give you some context, Erik and I met Peter in Bangkok at the Dynamite Circle conference that we babble on about all the time. So Peter travels a lot for work, racks up a lot of miles, and back in 2013, he decided to give away flights to people to get them home for the holiday using his miles. So that is where this whole thing is going. And this year, Abroaders, we joined Peter on this quest to help him with the redemptions because we wanted to ramp up, get more donations, and book more flights for people. So that was how Abroaders was involved in the Home for the Holidays initiative. And it's been really great, man.
Yeah, it's been fun. So I guess, the first thing is that we owe a lot of thank yous to people that helped us get the word out. I sort of saw this at the beginning as just like Peter was having his assistant book these flights.
Right.
And originally he was just giving his own miles and, he's got a lot of them, but not, only one person, right?
Exactly.
You can only do so much. And I said to Peter, well, let us know if you're going to do this again this year because we'd like to get involved. We can help book the flights. And we know a bunch of people that have lots of miles.
Right.
Not only our podcast listeners and people that visit our website, but we fortunately have a bunch of friends in the Points and Miles community.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
so I want to take a second and just thank some of the ones that really just went above and beyond the call of duty. It's one thing to say, hey, can you, we're doing this nice thing. Can you help? And somebody says, sure. And they tweet about it and it's over.
Right.
But, these people really, really made a huge impact. So first off, Travis from Extra Pack of Peanuts, he recorded a podcast with me. We talked about the Home for the Holidays project. A ton of people came in and donated.
And that's one thing too that's really cool. As far as the donations go, we asked people, where did you hear about this? Just to give an idea about how effective the marketing was. And Extra Pack of Peanuts definitely sent us some people that donated, tens of thousands of miles. For this.
We at least got a couple of flights booked thanks to Extra Pack of Peanuts listeners and readers. Second up is Dots, Lines, and Destinations. So this is Seth Miller, a collaboration between Seth and a couple other Points and Miles enthusiasts. It's one of my favorite podcasts. It's one that I listen to every single episode. And it's great if you're an airfare nerd or just a ton of really cool aviation stuff. But it's a great podcast, and they went above and beyond as well. Reached out to all of their listeners. Also made some very, very key intros to some of the other people that end up helping later on. So thanks a ton to Seth and Stephen Seagraves, who took some time out of their schedule to talk with me about this and made a bunch of helpful introductions. Also, Ed Pizzarelli from Pizza in Motion. He's one of the staples, the oldest boarding area blog members, and also was one of the co-founders, I believe, of Flyer Talk and Inside Flyer with Randy Pearson. So these guys have their finger on the pulse
some OGs in the
to a huge extent with what's going on with Points and Miles. Pizza in Motion is actually a great points blog. It's one of the ones that we check in on every once in a while for news and updates. And Ed's just a really good guy, and he helped us get a lot of points donations as well. And then also a shout out to Travel Miles 101, Mommy Points, and a few other blogs in the boarding area family that made posts about this, took some extra time because they thought that the cause was cool. Yeah. And overall, we raised more than 1.5 million points donated to make this happen. And at the moment, we're still booking flights, but it looks like at least 10, maybe 12 or 15 people are going to go home. And man, the stories are incredible. I didn't even look at the stories until we were already booking them.
Yeah, this is some get out Kleenex type of stuff stories. So to give you guys an idea how the winners were selected, and I hate to consider them winners because that alludes to the fact that other people are losers, and this is just a really cool thing where there are no losers. But people posted their stories on Imager. So people made a little post and they explained, why they couldn't afford to get home for the holidays and what it would mean to them and why they thought that possibly they would be deserving for this. And we've picked a few examples here to share with you guys. This stuff, you can't even make this stuff up. One that I found really compelling was Nicholas Hall. He's a U.S. airman, and this guy hasn't spent Christmas with his family in Texas since 2009, since he came out as gay. There was some friction in the family there over that. And he finally said, screw it. He's HIV positive and he thinks it's time to try to make amends and have everyone get along for a change. And so he's going to be heading home, hasn't been home in 7 years now, which is really cool. One of the first posts that came up was this dad who lives, over 1,000 miles away from his 5-year-old son, who is autistic, and it's a super long story as to, things didn't work out with mom and dad. And so the dad is just grinding away, doesn't make a whole lot of money, but lives very frugally so he can send money to help for his kid, because obviously some special needs require some extra costs that are incurred with that. So that was really heartwarming. And did you read the one about this teacher? This is like Jewel. Do you know who Jewel is, by the way? The Canadian singer who's now famous. And yeah, she used to live in her car, like just live the struggle. So final one I want to mention to you guys is a teacher who has just had a bunch of bad luck since finishing college, lived out of her car for a while, and she finally got a teaching job, but she's diagnosed with, I can't even pronounce it, it's a really rare condition that causes some issues with your eyes, and her medical bills have just financially wiped out any savings that she had. So she has no money to really do anything other than take care of herself, and she gets to go home for the first time in years because of Peter's initiative. So this is really cool stuff, and there's other people that are going home.
Yeah, that's just 3 stories out of a ton that were shared, and this year I think that we learned a lot about how we can make this even more powerful in years to come. I'm super excited. I mean, number one, like our fault, because it took us a while to get organized, a while to figure out what our role was going to be, make sure that we were coordinating well with Peter, and so the list of people that helped us that I reached out to at the beginning, those people not only made a big impact, but they did it on super short notice, because we were trying to give this away right after Thanksgiving. Yeah,
I mean, and Peter's a busy guy. He lives on a plane pretty much. So, I mean, he's probably organizing a lot of this in-flight Wi-Fi coming back from Japan on his little creative binges. But yeah, definitely this is something that now that we understand the mechanics of this thing, I think next year we can maybe add a 0 on the amount of miles we get donated and add a 0 on the amount of people we get home. It's definitely within the realm of possibility.
Yeah, super, super cool. I think the last thank you that we need to send out goes to Janelle on our booking team, because
she's the
I
unsung hero.
Just could not possibly express my gratitude to the level of effort and just I mean, she was all over this from the first moment that we started getting donations. She was calling, following up with people, explaining. By the way, this is not that easy to coordinate.
No, it's a lot of work. The people pledge miles, and then Janelle's got to reach out to them and say, "Hey, can we confirm that you're really willing to pledge 50,000 of your Delta miles if need be?" Then she's got to politely ask people for their account information and to actually book the flight for this complete stranger. But tremendous work on her part. She's still
working at it,
away,
still coordinating. People. And I mean, I think this more broadly just sort of resonates with the challenge of using award points. It's one thing, it's already hard to use your own points for your own trip, but when you've got to coordinate with somebody who's got the points and somebody who's got the travel plans, you got to get the login information. So anyways, bottom line, Janelle did a standout job on this, and we owe her a ton of gratitude.
One thing that I think is really cool about this is there are some cynics of travel hacking that'll say, you guys are selfish, you're ruining the system for everyone else. And this is just a great example of people, miles enthusiasts, Peter, the people that donated their miles. Like, this is just a big F you to anyone that says the points and miles enthusiasts, are just selfish people taking down the system. So really cool.
Well, listen, if you are interested, this is closed up as far as donations this year, but as AJ said, we are going to try and turn it up big time next time around. So if you're not already on the Abroaders community email list, we don't send out a ton of emails. We want to respect those inboxes and keep you out of the clutter. But if you would like to know about this next year when it's coming around, you can head over to abroaders.com/give. And that's where we had the sign up page for the donations, and you can just enter your email address, and we'll let you know next year when we're around. And we'll also send out a little report to all the folks that are signed up, and obviously all the folks that donated miles want to share.
Yeah, for the people that donated miles, thank you so much. I don't think we were able to use everybody's miles just based on availability and some prices. Some people that donated, 12,500, there just wasn't availability at Saver, but lots of people donated. To all those people, thank you very much. It means a lot. This is, truly, changing people's lives and helping people out around the holidays, which is a extra sentimental time for a lot of people. So it's really cool that, people got a pleasant surprise for a time of year that can be kind of a double whammy tough if things aren't going well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So you can check out show notes and all the links from today's episode at abroaders.com/155. And we will see you guys next year.
Hey, Broaders, don't be shy. Hop over to the website and join our email list for exclusive travel hacking content. If you like what we're up to, the best way you can support the show is by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes. Lastly, we would love to hear from you, so send your show feedback to Erik